They would like to take Trump out with this precedent that they're trying to establish as a bridge
because
into
this
the
gives
legal
them
discourse.
this takes away, and everyone needs to understand this. The deep state does want this to go forward because they want the sovereignty, folks. This is about voter sovereignty, whether the administrative state or your duly elected president is the one who gets to call the shots on what is and what isn't a secret in this country. Secrecy is the greatest threat to liberty, period. End of story. And they want, and this is how I actually think, how many cases of voir dire, how many cases have we done voir dire for over the years? I'm telling you, the only way to get people a jury, if this was to go to a jury, is to give them something that supersedes their own ideology and their own belief about a man, an individual man. You have to make this about voter sovereignty. The only question in this case is whether the administrative state or you has the authority to elect. Do they select or do you elect a president? That's the story. If this, listen, it's amazing. I may have to state the obvious, but I have to state the obvious. If the Trump defense team doesn't know this, then I'm going to have to say this out loud. This is the question you have to ask the jury. Not all the legalese nonsense they're going to try to use the Espionage Act to get you because the Presidential Records Act isn't a criminal statute. They're going to try to weave this crazy legal theory, and a jury will buy it if you make it about you. If you make it about them, they will not buy it, because that is really what they want a jury to do, Robert. Actually, they want to just bully you in a plea deal. That's all feds do. But if it goes to a jury, their conviction rates are extremely high. In case people don't know this, they get almost every conviction. Vince McMahon is like one of the only ones to get a not guilty in that court in a decade. I mean, they don't lose. You have to ask the jury whether they're prepared to give up the sovereignty that comes with being an American voter just to convict Donald Trump. So do you hate Donald Trump more than you enjoy your liberty? And that's the question, because that's really what this comes down to. If this is successful, Robert, then all we'll have moving forward, first of all, nobody like Trump will ever come along again, because why would it, right? Why would you get destroyed, your financial life in ruins, your reputation, and even lose your liberty, just to try to do something good for the American people? They're not going to do it anymore. People will be chilled out, and all we'll ever have is this list of state approved candidates that we can vote for. That's it. So, and I can't tell you, how many voters over the weekend, donors over the weekend, it does seem like they get this, because, Robert, we heard a lot of the only way to stop this march towards despotism is Trump or bust, total victory for Trump, because anyone else wins, we lose. And that's the way this is. That's in their minds. And I'm talking about even donors who hedge their bets and donate to different candidates. One of them just had Nikki Haley in their house the other day. They're hedging their bets because that's how rich people work. But they themselves feel like, well, I could be next, man. I could be next. And, it sends the wrong message. If you allow, and that's the question for me with voters, will they allow that? I don't think they're going to, after all the reasons we just talked about. But can you explain to people what it is here with this case? And then ultimately, because I watched your interview with Viva after you did Bourbon, and I can't agree more. I'm not a lawyer, but I can't agree more with you on your take, because, again, this is about whether you have the right to have an elected leader decide everything for you, not just what's secret, what's not secret. This is about your ability to select a leader who oversees the executive branch. If they get him, it means that you don't have that anymore. They are now in charge because they are above the president. And the president is as the people, our only representative in the executive branch. That's it. And he's supposed to be the boss. If they can decide what's classified or what he's allowed to keep or not allowed to keep, then that's it, folks. That's the game. Right. It's over. The show is over. Go home, barricade the door, because you don't live in a free country anymore. Your children, you just brought them into an authoritarian world. They're going to run roughshod all over us. this is going to be listen, human beings do horrible things to each other. This is what makes this country exceptional. Nothing else. Our ideas. And if you allow them to take that from us, we're screwed. We're all screwed. And it's time for those of you who are still asleep to wake the up, because that's what's at stake here. Go ahead, though. I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, exactly. So whenever you see anybody out there talking about these are the government's documents, ask yourself, who is the government?
That's right.
The government in the executive branch is the elected president. That's
right.
it. And it's people who work for him, who get their power through him. They do not have power above him. The legislature, Congress cannot pass laws that limit his executive authority, or the Article 2 no longer exist in the Constitution, because Article 2 vests all executive power in the elected president. End of story. Not any executive power, all executive power. And it doesn't give any executive power to the legislative branch. It doesn't give any executive power to the judicial branch. It doesn't give any executive power to unelected officials beneath the president.
Right.
The president alone is the personification under the Constitution of all executive power.
Amen.
So he determines what is his record, a public record, a presidential record, or a personal record. He determines what is national security information and what isn't. He determines what is classified and what isn't. He determines who it's shared with and who it isn't. And that decision is non-reviewable by the people underneath him, by the people in the Justice Department, who are also technically underneath him while he's president, but are still underneath the president later. Also, the Congress can't restrict it. The courts can't restrict it. So that has to be reposed in the president. What they are proposing is that there's a government in the executive branch other than the elected head of the executive branch.
Yep.
They're trying to use this precedent to say the people who are the government is the deep state, the administrative state, the bureaucratic state, the national security, military, industrial complex. And we know that because Jack Smith, when he gave the announcement of it, said this was for who? The men and women of the intelligence community. Our Constitution doesn't say anything about giving any power to the men and women of the intelligence community. So what they're trying to do is establish this precedent that the deep state governs the executive branch, not the American people, not the elected head of it. They're going further and trying to strip you and dilute your ability to vote for that elected president in 2024 by bringing these indictments. So it's a parallel twin attack on the elected president and on the power of the voters and the people and on the constitutional framework to allow the deep state to have exclusive monopoly on what is and isn't national security, what is and isn't classified, what is and isn't a presidential or personal or public record for the purposes of the law. And it's important to note, the indictment doesn't allege that Trump kept things at a later point that he wasn't supposed to. They say that Trump was not even allowed to take with him copies of documents from his own administration if that concerned national security. And this is what Edward Snowden has been warning about. This is what Julian Assange has been warning about, which is they're using secrets to seize power, to wage war. What is the beginning of the indictment about? It's about General Milley lying to Bob Woodward, claiming that he stopped Trump from going into war with Iran, when the truth was exactly the opposite. Milley tried to get Trump to go into war in Iran, and Trump refused. So we see the power of secrets. If we allow a secret government to exist, and that's what this would be, a secret government empowered by secrets with a monopoly on secrets, such that they can put the elected president in prison if he discloses their nefarious war-whoring secrets. That's how insane this case is. It goes way past and beyond Trump. And it's why it's so dangerous. I say this case isn't United States of America versus Donald Trump. It's deep state versus democracy. It's deep state versus constitutional government.